Hello everyone, I am Rohit Rajesh, pursuing mechanical engineering at MIT Anna University. I would like to talk about testing machine shop and how it functions in an engine manufacturing company. What is a test shop? From the name test shop, we know that before the engine is dispatched, it needs to satisfy certain criteria or results of tests. Such tests are conducted in this department. The two tests which can be performed are hot test and cold test. Hot test process. In hot test process, also called as bench test, the engines are started and tested as if they were in their respective vehicles. The operation of this process consists basically of a dynamometer brake that absorbs the energy produced in the engine in a scheme of operations controlled by an automated system with control parameters of speed and rotation. The basic requirements are A. Water supply and sewage, system of fuel supplies, adequate ventilation, the engine exhaust system for the outside, acoustic insulation, security system, and precaution against fire. As you can see, this is the schematic diagram of the hot testing machine. Now let's look at some of its components. The gas analyzer delivers reliable and accurate measurement quickly, and it is useful for emission compliance. They are used to determine the amount of carbon monoxide and other gases. Both infrared gas analyzers and chemical gas analyzers are used to find real-time combustion efficiency using measurement of gases. Smoke opacity meter is a device used to diagnose the proper functioning of a diesel engine. The amount of light blocked in the smoke released by the diesel engine from vehicles like trucks, ships, buses, motorcycles, locomotives, and large stacks from industrial operations are detected and measured using opacity meter. Fuel drain. High pressure injection is used to deliver power and fuel consumption, and hence it has several benefits over the previously used lower pressure fuel injection system because it has larger number of small drops giving a much higher ratio of surface area to volume. This provides improved vaporization from the surface of fuel droplets and so more efficient of combining atmospheric oxygen with vaporized fuel, delivering more complete combustion. Exhaust muffler. They are made of steel and are coated with aluminum to provide protection from heat and chemicals released from the exhaust system. Mufflers are used mainly to dissipate loud sounds created by engine piston valves. Surge tank. A surge tank is a water storage device used as a pressure neutralizer in a hydropower water conveyance system in order to dampen excess pressure variance. As you can see, this is the original Hall testing machine as it is present in an industry. Here it is the engine block. Engine block is connected to the appliance and then it is tightly fitted using screws. This is the fuel pipeline. The fuel pipeline is then connected to engine to provide uninterrupted supply of fuel. And this is the pressure valve. And here is the testing apparatus in which the parameters can be verified. Parameters can be changed and they can be used to check with real-time parameters. When the engine block when the machine starts functioning, slowly all the parameters can be modified to make sure that it resembles how it is there in real time. The pressure, speed, and in RPM can all be verified with the pressure, speed can be verified to make sure it suits how it varies in real time. This is very essential because the engine block is a very important component of an engine of a machine. If it fails, then it requires a laborious process for it to be replaced. So once it's tested, then it is verified with the given parameters charts. And if it matches with how the engine block should function, it is marked as OK, and then it is proceeds to the next step. Otherwise, the engine needs to be reworked on, and then it again needs to be tested. Now moving on to the cold test process. Cold test process is a set of procedures required to test the dynamic, electric, or fluid performances of the engine without being started. Such procedures are needed to be verified for proper execution of the engine assembly by the process of attesting its conformity to next assembly steps. The short duration of the cold test, about 2 minutes, allows a considerable reduction of the production time and a consequent increase in performance and productivity. In doing so, the total costs of production chain are reduced accordingly. The big advantage of the cold test is the elimination of ignition and consequently the engine combustion in the hour of test as in the hot test because the motor is rotated by the electric motor attached to its axis. The rotation speed of the engine in which the tests are performed is low and the supply of signals has extreme precision. Thus, the reduction of speeds and the loads of the test will minimize damage of a faulty engine. As you can see, this is how the hot test is performed in the industry. So now let's look at the procedure step by step. Firstly, the engine is totally assembled. Then the engine is placed in a final conveyor of a line. Then it is provided with supply of revalder and lubricant oil. Then engine goes to the 3 bench tests labeled as 1, 2, and 3. Then we ask this question: is the bench test empty? Yes. Then we go to the open bench support, and then it is set up in the bench engine, and then bench test is closed. If there is no space in the test bench, then the engine block has to wait for its turn. Then the engine block is connected to the engine pallet. The tester opens the door and enters into the bench. Then the engine is prepared for the test. Once the test is completed, the tester leaves the bench door and the door is closed. Now the parameters measured during test is also compared with the engine sheet readings. Now an automatic hot test is performed and duration of this is approximately 6 minutes. The tester then enters the bench and verifies the noise and performs the leak test. This approximately takes around 1 minute of time. Then the bench generates engine documented, approved or reapproved report. Then the engine is unprepared. It is then provided to the open bench support. Now we ask the question, was the engine approved? If yes, then engine is then displaced to final inspection and the hot test comes to an end. If the engine was not approved, the engine displacement needs to be revised. If the engine was fixed, then it is again sent back to the to start the hot test again. If the engine was not fixed, then the engine needs to be disassembled. Now let's look at the cold testing procedure. So just as the hot test, engine first needs to be totally assembled, then the engine is then placed on the final conveyor of the line. Supply of the revalder and lubricant oil is then provided. Engine goes inside the cold test chamber. The engine is then prepared for the test. It needs to be displaced to the test station. Then the engine sheet reading is performed. The automatic test is then carried out for about 2 minutes of time. The cold test generates engine documented approved or reapproved. The engine is then unprepared. Then we ask the same question, was the engine approved? If yes, then engine is displaced to the final inspection and here comes the end of the cold test. If the engine was not approved, the engine is displaced for revision. Then we ask the question, was engine fixed? If yes, then engine again goes back to be placed in the final conveyor of the line. If the engine was not fixed, then it again needs to be reassembled. Now let's look at a comparison between hot test process and cold test process based on the following parameters. number of people involved. The number of people involved in the hot test process is higher due to the need of operator of the cooling tower. The bench test requires water for the cooling system of the engine and dynamometer. The effluent treatment system also has an operator in charge of the sewage treatment issued by each bench test. There are two testers in the hot test. Based on administrative processes, for administrative process of these two, activities in parallel are necessary to production aimed at guiding and facilitating the work on the factory floor. It is understood as administrative process activities involved for which each process performs its functions in the most appropriate way. The operator of the utility sector also makes the fuel management operations in the tank pumps operations, receiving fuel and makes the consumption control. Based on cycle time has already been treated with the setup steps and it is compared only with automatic cycle time. The engine is already prepared for the test and the operator activates the beginning of the cycle. Time for implementation of the automatic cycle is one of the greatest advantages of the cold test because it is 3.5 times faster than the 3 bench test, also known as the hot test. Now, on the complexity, the criterion complexity is something difficult to be measured. However, when analyzing the true processes, it is to notice that operators from both the cold and the hot test are most capable of the cold and hot test in when it's done in the assembly line. The hot testers need to have 18 years of experience, while the cold test operators have at most 3 years of experience. On the levels of approval, it is understood as the levels of approval, the test executed so that engine needs to be ready to be assembled. Only then the engine can be approved. The engine is ready to be approved in the hot test, then it must be exempt of any leak and it must also reach the minimum and maximum RPM as set up in the process steps. In the hot test, the temperature and the pressures of the lubricating oil, diesel oil, inlet, and exhaust are controlled. There are specific appliances such as blow by meter and smoke meter to approve respectively the internal pressures of the oil and engine smoke levels. The cold test is dynamic because its measurements are still in the course of cycle, and hot test is a static test since its measurements are given in specific points of the test. As the rotation of the cold test is very low, that is between 80 to 1000 RPM, when compared to the hot test having RPM speed ranging from 800 to 3600 RPM, the comparison is impaired because the engines are operating under different conditions. Now concluding, despite the cold test having several benefits in its process, important requirements of the hot test approval such as leaks and tests in the turbo compressor are not identified in the cold test. That is why hot test has better reliability and consequently has a better advantage over the cold test. These are the two websites from which I had referred while making this presentation. Thank you so much for being a patient listener.